Hello, everyone. It's Lindsay Landry, and today I'm here with my dear friend and soul sister, Ginny.
Hi.
And we're going to be talking all about intimacy. So, this is our Rise Together conversation. And I feel like this is a really important topic right now for with everything that's going on, and also just in general. For me, intimacy the last year has really been forward for me, and I feel like for a lot of my clients in the after to have this conversation with me, and she said yes. So thank you for being here. Do you
Pleasure.
want to just share a little bit about yourself and your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Ginny Muir, and I am a coach and a guide on the path. I work with humans mostly in the realm of healing the emotional body. So, the things that we carry in our hearts, in our unseen places that may or may not be guiding, affecting, directing the course of our actions in life without us necessarily realizing it because they're hidden, they're held below the level of the mind. So I work with different modalities. I work with breath, I work with sound, I work with plant medicines, I work with energy, I work with my intuition, just to help people to create spaces that are safe enough. And we're talking about intimacy, and I feel like that's sort of what I do, right? Intimacy creates a space of safety so that people can open, and when we open, we heal. So
Mm.
just allowing people to really feel safe enough to open and get to the places inside of themselves that they can't access on their own is what I love to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And yeah, I wanted to share with those of you who are watching, the first time that we really connected was at a ceremony a couple years ago, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. I don't even know how long ago it was.
No, time is a strange thing.
And I guess Ginny had, she supported one of the energy programs that I was in. So we were in the same space, but we hadn't ever really connected or talked or anything like that. And I think it was the second day of the ceremony, and we had a moment. We had a moment where I remember she came up to me and she was just looking me straight in the eyes, and it was so potent. I felt it all the way, like in the core of my being, and it was such a powerful moment for me, because I don't think that I had ever, not that I had never been seen that deeply, but I never felt that level of safety to fully embrace my own intimacy. And yeah, that was a really, really powerful moment for me. What do you remember
Well,
from
I just
that
remember,
exchange?
I remember turning over and encountering you, like kind of and just like, oh, this being in front of me, and yeah, just leaning into you, like I want to know. And I remember you just erupting in laughter, like, and then we were just laughing. It was like we were passing this laugh back and forth and communicating without words, which is one of my favorite ways to do, where you were laughing at the depth of the intimacy, and then I was laughing at you going that deep, and then in this laughter loop that was so real. And it was just from that moment on, we were bonded. It was like we felt each other,
Our
in
hearts.
our hearts, our little ones, our cosmic
Totally.
awareness. We were giggling at the all of it together, and it was like, oh, you get it, and you were like, oh, you see me getting it, and there was this whole sweet exchange, and that's one of my favorite things about being a human. Those moments.
Totally. And what's coming to me too is I remember the layers, like, when we were having that interaction, I remember like the layers, like seeing the layers of like, oh, this is like the first layer that maybe you let see the world see. And then there's like this next layer, and then this next like it was this, like, so it was so juicy. And yeah, that was, I think one of the things that inspired me to invite you here to have that conversation, just because I could feel that from that day we had medicine for each other, some similar threads as well. And I wanted to share your medicine with my.
Oh, so grateful. Yeah. It's something that I sometimes don't even realize that I carry, but more and more it's being reflected to me that the level of intimacy, because there's something in my being, and I didn't necessarily have to work to achieve this. I think I just came in this way, but that is very it's a curiosity without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
If someone were to ask me, what is your hobby? I think for a long time I felt inadequate because I didn't have an answer to that question. Like, I'm not an avid photographer and I don't like paint but my hobby is other humans.
Mm.
And I never get bored of learning about the intricacies and the nuances of another being if they're willing to really show themselves to me. It's like infinite for me to dive in with another human and to really understand all the layers. So there's just this curiosity of like, I want to know what's going on in there. And somehow it does, I think the non-judgment has grown over the years because so much of my work has been to soften judgment against myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I soften judgment against myself, the bigger space I am able to hold for non-judgment with others. Mm-hmm. And truly, I feel like one of the things that my client said to me the other day is, she was like, I got to come to you with this super gnarly, super messy thing, and I don't even feel a little bit nervous. Like, Ginny doesn't judge. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, bring it. Like, what do you got? Like, I am not going to judge it. Yeah. So I think there's a wall that is sometimes between us as humans, of judgment. Even if it's like a thin wall, a lot of people are walking around looking at us like, does this person fit with what I want them to, like, are they my preferred way of being, and somehow I just don't really have that super present. And so it opens to more intimacy being possible.
Yeah, and I think the lighthearted, playful approach,
yeah,
also makes it really easy, because I know for me, like I was sharing with you before we started to record, um, I've always known that I'm an intimate person and that going deep is like my jam. It's who I am. I can't not be deep because I'm a Scorpio. I have it 7 times in my chart.
I love Scorpios.
I live in the underworld,
I'm
and
a Pisces, so like my Pisces, like the water sign in me loves the water sign in you, and I also just love a Scorpionic. Like I'm like, take me into your deep dive, show me all of the transformation through pain. Let's do it.
my moon is Pisces.
Oh, of course.
So I have both, right? Like I have the depth, and then I think what's happened for me a lot of my life is then my Pisces moon kind of would kick in, and I'm like feeling so soft and like tender about the way that I activated someone, or like their discomfort with intimacy. I remember this memories coming up. I maybe had been in business like for 2 years, having a private practice, and this guy, he was the CEO, the owner of like multiple hospice. And he came into my office. I was a dietitian at the time, and he was wanting to talk to me about doing some classes for his staff on energy. And he started telling me all of this stuff about sitting in the office, like feeling, and a lot for me I didn't know how to navigate. And then also, sometimes I would trigger people to the other side of, they would start to feel really uncomfortable whatever I was. And so for me, in my journey, like, to allow myself to be in my dark, shadowy, like.
Hang on. Your sound was doing the weird thing for a little bit there.
We can take a breath.
Yeah. We have energy forces at play here in our conversation, so there's some.
They'll let us know when we need to breathe.
Yeah, interference when we need to breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, rather than it being this shadowy thing, like, what's the truth about it?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I feel like you, like, gave me permission to begin to open that part of myself.
Oh, wow. It's like the best feedback ever.
Oh.
One of my favorite roles in this lifetime is permission giver.
Mm.
A sister of mine reflected that to me a few years ago. She just said, we were in a circle offering acknowledgments, which is another beautiful form of intimacy, to really like allow a group to see and hold you. And we were giving each other acknowledgments and kind of like 1 to 2 word little nuggets. And she just said to me, permission giver. And it landed in my heart like, oh, that's something. She's seeing something important in me. And I asked her for more information about it. And she just said, yeah, I watch you and how increasingly freely you allow yourself to move through the world with all of your parts. And it permissions me to do the same. It doesn't have to look neat. It doesn't have to look like it fits in one thing. It can be wildly incongruous, and it can be messy, and it can be emotional, and it can be deeply feeling. And you doing that and me watching the world respond to you beautifully as you do that gives me permission to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, oh, that's one of my favorite things. I want to just be walking around this planet giving people permission if they need it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, what comes forward to me is, we were talking before we hit record just about relationships, and you had mentioned a permission piece there, and I think that's really powerful, because I was sharing with you how, in my relationship, me and James have been together for 10 years, and we still trigger each other, and we still have moments sometimes of like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And I think in any relationship, sometimes we hit those walls of, where we're hitting each other's walls. It's not even a wall in the relationship, but it's, we're hitting up against each other's like edges.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes.
Is there anything you want to say about that?
Yeah. Well, I think to me, this is courageous practice in relationship, because for me, my deep dive into actual emotional intimacy with other humans feels like it just started really only about 7-8 years ago. And up until that point, I was opting for safety. Like, I was kind of optimizing my life for comfort as opposed to what my heart was deeply wanting. So in one way of explaining that is, I was in a marriage, for example, which I was in for 8 years, that was very safe, but the walls were firm. Like, it was like once you hit a wall, like we weren't going past it. There wasn't a willingness to hit a wall, like kind of like fall back and whoa, and then like come back to it and be like, what's here in the wall? You know, so it was just this kind of like dead end conversation. There wasn't going to go anywhere. And then I joined it's one of those moments of life where you just feel like life guided you. You know, I joined a mastermind with a woman who's now a dear friend of mine, but it was a women's leadership mastermind. I just thought I wanted her help with growing my business. I was a health coach at the time. That's how I started my practice. And instead, it was a container of 16 women for a year long with 3 retreats, and just we were in it with each other. And it was actually an experiment. It was actually an exploration and a learning of sisterhood and emotional intimacy and sisterhood. And that was in 2013. And that was really my first experience in this lifetime of feeling fully met by many different beings in willingness to come up against each other and keep going, to trigger each other, to have judgments, to have projections, and to not just back into our corners and talk shit about them or like do whatever little comfortable habits we have, but to actually breathe, keep our hearts open, lean in and go, that hurt me. And I don't know if it's me, I don't know if it's you, but I'm willing to explore it. And I'm open to either possibility, right? Which is true intimacy, because it's like, could be me. That's kind of one of the precursors, I think, to actual willingness for intimacy, is to be like, this could be me. It could also be you, but it could be me.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. And so then in being in that container for that year was the first of many, obviously, like intimate containers with women. But what it really showed me was, oh, I haven't been experiencing true intimacy in my life, not to the level of which I'm capable. And it eventually led to me leaving that marriage and then exploring relationships since then with, you know, much more of a focus on, I won't be in a relationship with someone who's not gonna like go there with me. And the work with the man that I'm in relationship with right now, we're just 4 months in, and we're like bumping up against each other. And it's funny, I mean, we had one of those fights like last week, like, we're done, we're breaking up, and yet he's like driving here to meet me today. You know, like, we're still working it out. But it took like several days, and then a phone call where it's like, whoa, that was my edge, you found it, I had a reaction. And so it's like, how good can we get at shortening the time between realizing that and actually naming it, you know? That's deepening and deepening and deepening into intimacy.
Do y'all hit the edge and then like go do your own thing and then come back, giggle a little bit? And
yeah, well, it's like it looks different each time. So the particular flavor of this relationship, I don't know if you're familiar with Imago relationship therapy. So there's a beautiful, for people who are interested in for people who have found themselves in a relationship in their life that they're like, this is bringing up all my childhood shit. There's a really beautiful framework called Imago Relationship Therapy, developed by a man named Harville Hendricks. There's a beautiful book called Getting the Love You Want. But the whole theory there is that we're wounded in relationship. And so we have to heal in relationship. So when you are actually emotionally ready to heal, you will call in a partner that will bring up your things so that you can work through them as an adult with more capacity and find your way to unraveling those old wounds, if you're doing it right. But of course, we don't want to stay often because it brings up the old things, and then we just want to retreat back into letting the little one run the show, letting the child drive the car, you know, like the wounded child who's like. So I've just in like one thing that we had the other week, it was like he said something and I felt myself go into immediate emotional shutdown. Like, I have a very open heart. It is like an open invitation to the world, but there are certain things that are deep triggers that will just like cause it to shut down. And then it's like, I just go offline. It's like I leave the building. It's like I can feel myself leave my body to a certain degree, but mostly it just looks like silence and iciness. And so I felt that happen. And then it was just like breathing and being like, okay, There's a part of me that can recognize I'm having a very intense flight response right now. And I can actually now, with practice, access those words. And so instead of just being like, fuck you, and looking out the window or whatever, I can be like, whoa, I'm having an intense flight response right now, and everything in me wants to bolt. And so, like, when you name that, the thing that we've come to is in that moment, the person who is less triggered has to be the stand for the relationship.
Mm.
Right? Because if his little one is responding to my little one, then we're done. Then it's going to just collapse and everyone's going to take their toys and go home, you know? But if the person who is less triggered in that moment can be like, okay, I got it. I'm holding I'm a yes to this relationship. I'm a stand for this relationship. So when we're doing it well, that's what it looks like. One person gets triggered, the other one like holds them through that process. We make our way back, and then we usually have great sex.
Well, that's a good thing.
We also do a lot of that, like tantric practice and sexual polarity and like the yoga of intimacy and that kind of stuff. So we also play a lot in the masculine feminine dynamics together. So often that will be like the last space of clearing, you know, or sometimes we'll like wrestle it out. Like there'll be like a physical component. But when it doesn't look great, what happens is the two little ones decide that they don't want to play together. We both sort of storm away, and then neither person feels good in their body. You know, it's like, this is the thing I always check for in relationship with myself and others is, do I feel in alignment? Because sometimes a completion needs to be made and it won't feel comfortable, but it will feel aligned. Mm-hmm. You and I were talking before we started recording about a scenario where you were like, I just had to take a stand.
Yeah.
It didn't feel great. I had to complete a relationship, but I was doing it from this place of total alignment. So like, while a little heartbreaking, there's no part of you that's like turmoily, you know, you're not like tussling with yourself and like, I didn't quite do it right. That wasn't my best work. I didn't get all the way there, you know?
Well,
so
sometimes I still do have that.
Okay, well, great. So that's an interesting, that to me is like like that means to me, when I feel that in my body, I'm like, what work? It just means there's some more threads of work to be done there. Sometimes with that person, sometimes not with that person.
Yeah.
But what happens is that he and I we're both very, we'll feel things in our bodies. Like he's a Taurus, and I'm Taurus rising. So we both have these like embodied intimacy things going on. And we'll be like, he's like, yeah, there's a knot in my stomach and it like won't go away because we didn't get totally clear. And I'm like, yeah, every time I turn towards it energetically, it feels like an open loop and I don't like it, you know? And so then we'll eventually make our way back to each other and, you know, like work it out and then eventually giggle, hopefully. Sometimes takes us a minute to get to the giggling. So.
Taurus can be serious sometimes.
Oh God, so serious.
A little stubborn, not wanting to do the thing.
Yeah, stubborn and serious and oh my God, but really good in the kitchen.
Yeah. I want to just take a breath there. There's so many things that were coming forward. I just kind of feel for what feels important. So what's coming forward that feels important, I think, is so like you were saying, you sometimes go into this flight response where you leave your body. And so right now we have a lot of stuff happening in the collective. And I think it's like prime time to do this work, right? Like when we were having this conversation yesterday about like, do we record? Do we not record? And it was like, this is actually, it's important, you know, this is the work right now, like expanding our capacity to get intimate with ourselves and with others, with the discomfort. And so when we are in relationship, whether it's with the world, you know, or a community, or and bring discomfort. Like I know for me in my relationship, one of the things that's been coming forward is James' response to rage. Like if you, and then that then brings a response in me. And I guess what I'm feeling is, so for someone that maybe they start to notice like, yeah, I'm really uncomfortable when my boyfriend or my friend or someone's angry like that, or when they go into victim story, let's just say. What would you say, like, I don't know, do you want to speak on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that is a great mission or goal to have in this life is to expand our capacity to be with energies that we don't automatically like. So we naturally gravitate towards people, towards energies that are doing things in a way that's comfortable for us, in a way that we don't feel challenged by. If I'm only around people who aren't making me feel challenged, what I notice is I'm probably not really stretching. In that way, I'm optimizing for comfort inside myself, which means that I'm becoming less resilient to other energies coming at me and working with them, right? So for example, if there's an energy that you don't necessarily like, let's say it's a victim energy. That's one that's a little bit challenging for me. Instead of just going like, oh, this person's in victim, I don't like it, I'm shutting it down, which is not intimacy. It's going, okay, whoa, what I'm experiencing right now is someone in a victim energy. What reaction does that create in me? It doesn't mean that you have to be a yes to it. It just means that that can't go unexamined. Because the second we just project it out to they're bad, they're wrong, we're closing down the conversation.
Mm-hmm. And we're ping-ponging energy, right? Like it's just
For
like
sure.
a ping pong game.
Yes. So instead, to be like, okay, whoa, rage. I don't love rage. What does rage bring up in me? So we move into what it's like. I was telling you this when we first got on. It's a expanding without bypassing. Is my favorite way. It's like instead of going up and out, we actually widen ourselves. So we're like, okay, as Ginny, I can breathe into my body, make my consciousness wider so that over here in this corner of my consciousness, I can be having a deep reaction to this rage that makes me feel like a little girl, that makes me feel like I want to curl into a ball, that reminds me of my dad, whatever it is. And over here in this corner of my being, I can be watching that and narrating it, like understanding it. So when we're doing both of those things, you can feel it's like, instead of like having our nose in a book and just like reading it, it's like all of a sudden we're holding the thing at arm's length and we can have a whole view of the world, not just the pages in front of our nose. Does that make sense? So it's like, okay, I can see that if I were just reading this one word over and over and over again, I would be like fixated on that. But if I could push it back and be like, oh, that's part of a sentence, which is part of a page, which is part of a landscape, which is part, the whole thing. So it doesn't mean that you don't have the reaction that you have to rage, and actually that there might be some medicine for the other person in your reaction to their rage. It doesn't mean that your reaction doesn't have value, because I think that's where we get confused, is we're like, we label our reactions innately good or innately bad, but actually the medicine is in the interaction. So if the person coming at you is rage, you go, what's my reaction to rage? What might I have to bring into this energetic cauldron to contribute that is useful, both to me and the other?
I love that. I want to just take a breath here and allow people to kind of soak that in, really feel it. yeah, I can feel where, for empaths, it can be really tricky because we want to hold space and listen. And, I, I'm this in the past for sure. Um, and then somehow we think that means just allowing people to, like, we negate for starting our um, expressing what you were just sharing, how like actually your experience and what's moving through you, something you might have to contribute, like that can be highly valuable to the relationship. That is the intimacy.
Yes.
If we are vacating, then that's a space of awareness to then expand our capacity to get more present.
Exactly. So it's like, in essence, by discounting the experience you're having inside of you, you're denying your medicine. You're denying the other person your medicine. Because there's a reason why they're interacting with you in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So do you let the alchemy of your two experiences come together and do its thing? Or do you just shut yours down and be like, okay, I'm just going to, your rage takes over and I'm out?
And that's what we're like all really deeply desiring to move into, right? Rather than like this old patriarchal, like, I'm more powerful than you and you have to listen to me.
Yeah.
Oh, I know for me, like this desire has been emerging the past few years of like, I desire the commingling, the rise together, like let's um bring it, right? And my magic can fuel your magic and we
Yeah. Exactly. And like get curious and welcome it from each other and be like, whoa, you got that, I've got this, and knowing that sometimes that's going to feel like this beautiful weaving, and sometimes it's going to feel like, oh,
question.
I got something that's like not going to be your favorite thing to hear, and I was telling you when we first got on, I'm here in Kansas in this moment as we're recording with my best friend in the world, and we've been best friends since 2013 when we met in a mastermind, and the one I was speaking about, and our friendship has been this like 7-year evolution of just ever deepening intimacy, but calling each other really forward. So like that's part of the thing we do to each other and for each other, but with the constant understanding of that triggered me and I'm not going anywhere. So there's total safety. The container is super fucking solid.
Mm.
So inside of that, we can massage each other's scruffy parts, and just be like, I see this thing you're doing, and I'm actually a stand for the future version of you that doesn't do that.
Or that like really hurts or it feels disrespectful. It doesn't feel good when you do that.
Right. And in a truly intimate relationship, when we're willing to open ourselves, whether it's partnership or deep sisterhood or whatever it is, I really think that we're standing for the other person's magnificence. Like me as your sister, if I see you, I'm holding this vision of you that is so beautiful and so essency and so expressed, and I see where you're headed. And so if I issue a complaint or a correction, it's because it feels out of alignment with that future vision of you that I see, and I want to help you get there.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at it in those terms, it's like anytime someone is giving you feedback, I mean, because this is part of what we have to we have to have more capacity to receive feedback as humans, like, especially as white ladies. Like, we got to be able to, there's this way as women that we've been told that if we don't get it right the first time, we're not lovable.
Mm.
And right now, in the conversations that are in the world, we are not going to get it right the first time because of the water we've been swimming in. So we're going to mess up a little bit. And if we are so fragile that we can't receive feedback on our mess ups, how are we actually going to become who we want to be? So that's to me one of the biggest dangers I see, like the biggest barriers to intimacy in the world and in relationship, is if you're not available to receive feedback from the other and to breathe, to feel that like, oh, your heart wants to close down because you did it wrong, and oh, that's scary, and don't be mad at me, and all those things. But if you're like, okay, thank you, you're pointing out to me something that I was unaware of. It feels ouchy to see that I was unaware of it, but I can see I needed to be made aware of it, and I can integrate it. Like if we can really do that with a strong spine and an open heart, then we can, it just like exponentially increases our capacity to become who we're trying to be.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what I'm really feeling too as you're speaking that is I can feel the minds. You know, so there's a way that we can receive the feedback with our mind, but usually that's when then we go into like the story or um yeah, we see that we got it wrong, right? And then that creates sort of like this protection response. But when we can receive the feedback with our heart,
yeah,
um, it might be totally different. Well, it is totally different. And
it is.
I
And
know,
it hurts. Like this is the thing. I think that's the thing. It's okay for it to hurt, is what I have really learned over the past few years, is like to feel that initial point of impact when someone delivers a truth to you, to be able to let it go like, oof, you
or
know, and
even when they deliver something that's not true,
right, when they deliver
but
it.
you can tell that like to them it is true.
Yes. Yeah, great point. So to feel, to allow the heart to go like, oof, whoa, ouch, without closing is a superpower in relationship, in
Mm.
intimacy. And to hold your center, let it land, and then move it through your own body, your own wisdom, your own judgment, and get curious, does this feel true for me?
Mm-hmm.
Without totally closing down or going on the attack, which is usually we do one of those two things. But you, da da da. Like, what if you just take a minute and let it land?
Mm-hmm.
And even I let it land and I make a sound. You know, one of the things I've learned is it's okay to reveal what's happening in your heart. This is a teaching from John Wineland, who teaches a lot about masculine and feminine dynamics. But he says when you're in your feminine, um, it's way better to reveal how you're feeling than to report how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So instead of going into the mind and going, when you said that, blah, 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 this happened, instead just like letting it land and going like, oof, ouch.
Mm.
Like revealing, showing through your body what just happened in you. Same with delight, with joy, like we were talking about in our first encounter. We were just revealing to each other in this like open-hearted feminine way, this is what's happening in my body. I'm delighted, I'm laughing, I'm just like, I don't need words, I can just express to you. So that's one of the things that I've really learned that helps my heart to stay open, is it's okay to reveal in the moment how the other person's feedback is landing, but just let them know I'm staying open to it, and here's what's happening. Oof, whoa, ouch, okay, let me breathe, you know, and all of that is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know we were talking about too how, you know, sometimes when we show up with such an open heart, the other
Mm-hmm.
person, like, no matter how powerful we are, we
Yeah.
can't necessarily open their hearts.
Yeah.
Like, they have to make the choice. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've had a really, in the past, I've been a recent student, past couple years only, of what it actually is to grieve. So this is also an important part of intimacy, and of it feels to me like grief feels to me like real true grief, feels to me like high level like, really high level heart work. And I had a year of grief last year of completions and endings, including losing my soulmate dog and ending a beautiful relationship that has transitioned into friendship, but really having to grieve the partnership piece of it. And I would just go into this grief practice and let myself really feel all the things that break my heart. And some of them are predictable, right? Some of them are like losing. I mean, the human experience is grief.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything that we love, we will lose.
That came up for me yesterday.
Every single thing. It doesn't matter how beautiful it is. It doesn't matter. I mean, some way or another, everything that you love in human form on this plane, you will lose. So get used to grieving, basically. And we try and deny that and pretend like that's not happening. But anyways, that is fascinating. But another thing that came up for me that was surprising was how much grief I feel and carry at my powerlessness to open another's heart. And I had to really allow myself to grieve that because it's just true. I am not the opener of hearts. I can walk around this world as an invitation to meet me in open-hearted connection, and I'm also going to get a lot of no's to that invitation. And there's a little one in me who doesn't want any no's. She just wants to bring her heart and be like, yes, right? Yes, you're a yes, and I'm a yes, and we're all a yes. But that's just not the case. And so there's going to be many moments when someone is like, the way you're coming with this open heart, I have so much armor. I have so many walls around my heart. I don't even know what to do with you and this open heart other than just say no. And that's where that person is in their current experience of being a human. And I feel powerlessness when I encounter that because I actually am. Like, I don't have that power. That's only within them. The power to open our hearts is entirely individual. And so you can be an invitation, but you cannot make someone else's heart open. It's an inside job. And so to grieve that powerlessness was important for me, like to let myself weep at, I can't do it. And coming to terms with that. I still struggle a little, I still want to be like, but if I'm really good at it, like maybe if I learn this ninja trick, maybe if I take this course, maybe if I learn this breathing technique, I can open all the hearts and like this level of conscious conversation can happen everywhere. But it's just not, there's some grief required there.
Yeah, I feel like this past year I've really been receiving that lesson too. I think that the more we open to intimacy, right, the more life gets intimate with us and begins to give us these opportunities and these lessons and weaves these webs for us. And that was a big lesson that came through for me. Like, it's really not about me, and it's okay. It's okay, like, that someone can't or isn't ready or doesn't want to open to a certain level. It's okay if, their pain is so locked up for them that they don't want to have a conversation. Like, actually, I think it was like in December for us to have a conversation, and like the next day we got kicked out of our house.
Great. Yes. Yes.
And I still haven't talked to the landlord. She just was not available to talk to us. She said she did not want to talk to us. And so
you can't.
We didn't, and it really taught me a lot because I blocked her. Like, I blocked her on my cell phone. I blocked her email, and I don't do those kinds of things. Like, I am the stand for a relationship till the end.
Yeah.
Like usually I go over and beyond and I overgive myself and I over try and I over want to communicate, and there was no point, you
No.
know?
You can
And
just feel. You can, if you really start to learn, you can feel. You can start to become better at. I have to plug in my. I have to grab my plug. Here.
okay.
It told me it was running out of battery. Um, you can feel as you learn to take better care of your own energy, like kind of like you learn more, you become more astute at energetic management and hygiene. You can feel when someone's like got a crack open and you could be really powerful medicine for them, and it's worth it for you to like bring your heart there and just make a shift in that being.
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel when it's just like it's a no. And to know what's what is very powerful self-loving practice, and then to draw those boundaries for yourself. That sounds like it was so the right move.
Yes.
And who knows what you provided inside that interaction already. You know, there was a way that you were, just by being who you are.
Exactly. Yeah, I've had to binge. I've been drinking that medicine too, of like,
Yeah.
and it's been uncomfortable. Like I've had to I guess my warrior has been a little, she's been coming out more, but I think it's okay. It's actually part of nature. It's part of my nature. And when I don't allow her to speak or um, hold integrity, right, then I am disrespecting myself and I'm not valuing all of who I am. And what I do know too is the sisters who really love me, they have my care. That's
Wait, you
and
just cut out. You
oh,
cut out. Say that again.
the sisters who love me, they love my integrity.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is one of the things that they love about me, like my willingness to um, be willing, but also to be in integrity with myself.
Yes. Yeah. So powerful.
Hmm.
It's a quality that I love and crave in others, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the parlance of that archetyping system that we both speak, where I'm the heroine and you carry the warrior medicine, it's what I love most about a warrior is I'm like, give me a boundary. Like I need something to push up against. Like that teaches me, it shows me something that I don't necessarily carry as medicine in my own being, but I desire, you know, and I tend to be in a relationship with a lot of warriors who are doing their work because that integrity is so healing for me to be in a relationship and to have someone like look me directly in the eye and be like, I'm a no to that for you. Or like, no, let's cut this out, you
Let's
know, or
keep exploring. Maybe there's something else. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's awesome. It's really powerful.
So yeah, let's just fill in and see if there's any last things that are wanting to come forward. What's coming forward for me is I feel like I want to grant some permission for people to really honor themselves and be in integrity like during this time,
Yeah.
because one of the things that I've been noticing in the online space is
Mm-hmm.
there's like this slipperiness where anytime I think a movement happens, it can get really tricky, right? Because there's like an invitation.
Wait, say it again. Body.
So there can be an invitation into the movement, but
Yeah.
also an invitation into the pattern.
Oh, yeah.
And so what I've been noticing is like a lot of people I feel like are getting kind of pulled into the old program.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it really takes a lot of listening and being willing to get intimate with yourself and also to possibly rub some of the edges of others.
Yes. Yeah, when you say that, something came through for me, which was like both this one of these both and moments where those of us, so this is just the viewpoint that I tend to take. So people can try it on, see if it feels true for them. But those of us who are in the younger generations of this time, um, we are the leading edge of consciousness. So we do know more than previous generations. We are the most evolved DNA that has survived. And we also grew up, like, society is progressing, is moving forward, is becoming more complex and nuanced. And, you know, even though it doesn't look like that necessarily, things are coming to the surface because they need to. So we do carry in our beings this soul mission to come here and move the needle forward. Especially those of us who identify as heart-centered feelers, warriors of love on this planet. There's a way that we came in coded to be here for this time and to do things differently, to create a new way. So that's one truth. The other truth is we are grown and steeped in a system that is the old way.
Mm-hmm.
So to get really quiet and listen for which is which, like, you can't hear which is which unless you're like deeply intimate with yourself. Like, can I really hear this new consciousness that I'm here to help steward on the planet? Or is this actually what I learned from generations before that was like taught to me by whoever when I was little, and I have to start to pull apart those threads? And they're so entangled because I'm both things. I'm both raised in the white South and grew up, you know, with the fear of, with racism basically just like pounding me from every corner. But at the essence of my being, I'm a stand for love and unification and equity for us as human beings. And I deeply know that we're all the same thing. That skin color is a absolute, like, what? Why did we choose that to make?
I feel like our hearts, our emotions, right? Like, it has no color. It is, everyone has the same.
We're all human
heart.
beings. It's so ridiculous that we chose to fixate on skin color as this separating, othering thing. So we know that in our hearts, and we're all raised in a system that did that. So we have to like really listen so deeply to pull apart the truth that I know at the center of my being and all the layers of shit that have been plastered onto me by life. And if we're not listening deeply, we become really easily bandwagony, like, oh, I got to jump on this thing. Oh, I have to act out of panic in this way. Oh, I have to do this. But if you actually just really feel, oh, this is not a moment in time. This is a revolution. This is a human revolution that I'm here for a part of, which I also think applies to the way we handle our earth and climate. Like right now, race is the thing that's forward, but there are going to be a lot of things that we have to get really uncomfortable and look at. But it's impossible to do that if you're not willing to sit deeply with yourself and sort through the layers and go like, oh, that's a racist belief. Oh, here's where it came from. Here's why I think that, you know, because they're subtle, the racist beliefs. Like, I've been educating myself and whatever, and I can see that so many of the legends I was raised with, like, America's, you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps and everyone can do it and you're supposed to be self-made, and it's like, oh, that's actually bullshit when you look at a system of oppression that's hundreds of years old. Everyone is not pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. Like, that's not, you know, but that was fed to me and I bought it. If you work hard enough, anyone can be anything. Not true. So then I get to feel, all right, how does the love inside me want to be a stand for shifting humanity in that direction, you know? And so anyways, I'm just saying it requires deep intimacy with the self to not just jump into one projection or another, but to really sort through the layers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really can feel that if you work hard enough, because
Yeah.
you know, I think too when things get intense, our business can be one of those ways that we um choose to sort of vacate.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm just gonna put all of my energy into this,
Yeah.
serving or to building something or to create. And yeah, it actually could be just feeding the old system.
Yeah, exactly. Can you get intimate enough with yourself to look and go like, "Oh, is this just a capitalism trap?" You know, like am
And
I yeah.
it's tricky, you know. I still struggle with that sometimes because,
Same.
you know, like, yeah, we've been at the camp and I've been like, oh, I'm kind of bored. Like, I wish I could just create something in my business.
Yeah, totally. I fully
Spirit's
understand.
like, nope, not yet.
Yeah, exactly. The time for listening and being uncomfortable and staying. Can you just stay? Can you just stay? I think that's so
So
much of what intimacy is about, is expanding our capacity to stay in this challenging human condition without leaving. And one of the things that I ask people a lot, clients and people I'm in relationship with, is when you leave, how do you leave?
hmm.
When you leave, how do you leave? It's really good to call ourselves, we all have our unique escape routes. It might be through disassociation, it might be through numbing behavior, it might be through overworking, it might be through getting defensive, it might be through whatever, you know, addictive behaviors, whatever it is. But every one of us has some sort of, might be through sleeping a lot, you know, every one of us has some sort of way that we leave. And so just to call yourself out when you notice that you're leaving and see if you can invite yourself to stay.
I love that. Yeah, and you know, for me, one of the edges too that I've been expanding is when I'm noticing that I'm starting to have a hard time, like letting it be okay to reach out to a friend and
Yes.
just say like, I'm having a hard time, or even energetically call it in because I know for a while, you know, I had a really hard time receiving support or letting people be with me in my own discomfort. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like I had to kind of manage it or hold it all together, and um, because my energy can be a lot.
Mm.
It,
Yours
it
and mine both, babe.
yeah, it can be a lot,
Yeah.
and yeah, when it's just letting it be okay to receive the grace, receive the help. And, you know, the more that I let myself open to that, what I'm noticing is we often don't even have to actually do the reaching out if we just open ourselves to it, knowing that we desire it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, for me, grace has been a huge part of intimacy too, because when we hit those edges of like not knowing how,
Oh
you know,
gosh.
I don't know how to open more. I don't know how to do it the new way. Like,
Right.
this isn't working. I'm very clear on that.
Yeah.
And what's the new way? I have no idea.
We get stuck and we have to allow that to be stuck. Like, oh my God, this way sucks. I'm sucking at this. I can feel it. You know, just to be able to say that, like, whoa, I can feel I'm sucking at this in this moment, you know? And I don't have a pathway to a new way. I'm messily exploring my way. And yeah, grace.
Grace. Yes
Oh,
to grace.
yes, to grace.
I love you so much. I'm so
Oh,
grateful for you.
what a fun time being with you. I love it. I
Mhm.
love you and I love it. I love this and I love what you're doing. And I'm just so grateful to you for being who you are in the world with such
Mhm.
courage.
Thank you. Same to you, sister. So, if anybody is wanting to find you, I'll put your info in the YouTube notes. And
Great.
also on the web page that I'll have. But do you want to just say it real quick too?
Sure, yeah. I'm in the process of revising my website actually, which is good because it's not totally up to date. So it's still live. It's just my name, Ginny Muir, GINNYMUIR.com. I'm probably the most active, like write the most and share the most on Instagram, actually, is the platform where I tend to hang out the most. I'm also on Facebook. But hopefully within the next couple months, there will be a shiny new website that is more reflective of the work I'm doing now. You know, one of the things about our work is that it's very alive and it shifts a lot. So my
Mm-hmm.
website's not even that old. It's like a couple years old, and I look at it and I'm like, who is that woman? And what is she doing? You know? So yeah, so Instagram is the most sort of alive representation of who I am in this moment. And it's just my name, Ginny Muir.
Beautiful. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for sharing me with your people.
And for those who've listened, let us know. Let us know what this moved for you. Let us know what it brought forward. We'd love to hear from you. So you can comment below or join the Rise Together Facebook community. And so much love.
Bye.